Hello and welcome back to part 2, tier 1 of the Complete Unsolved Iceberg. We will be going through the second half that you see here. These videos are fairly long already, so without further ado, thanks for watching. If you enjoy the video, like, subscribe, all of that. Let's get into it. Jack the Ripper. So Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer who was active in the Whitechapel district of London in 1888. Attacks attributed to the Ripper typically involved female prostitutes, with these attacks consisting of their throats being slashed and their bodies being mutilated, including having some of their organs removed, which led a lot of people to believe that perhaps whoever was committing these crimes had some advanced anatomical knowledge. Jeffrey Epstein. So Jeffrey Epstein is an American financier who somehow rose to prominent positions in places like Bear Stearns, despite lacking a college degree. He was also known to be friends with people like Les Wexner, who is the founder of Victoria's Secret, as well as actors like Chris Tucker and Kevin Spacey. He also was acquaintances with Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. All of these people rode on his plane, which he called the Lolita Express, which seems to be named after a book in which a character has a relationship with an underage individual. In 2019, he was arrested and accused of trafficking underage individuals, where he then wound up dead in his jail cell under very mysterious circumstances. The theory of all of this is that himself, as well as his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, would do these trafficking. They were part of this trafficking organization in order to get blackmail on powerful individuals, in order for them, but more likely somebody above them, to have control over said individuals. So the Jersey Devil is a legendary creature said to inhabit the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey. The story behind the Jersey Devil is that there's a woman named Jane Leeds, also known as Mother Leeds, who became pregnant with her 13th child. Upon finding out that she was pregnant with this child, she cursed it and said that it would be a devil. Then on the night of the birth of said child, it was said to come out normal and then grew horns, hooves, and wings and flew out of the chimney of the house. At the time, a lot of people claimed that she was a witch or that she had relations with the literal devil, which is why she gave birth to the spawn of Satan, basically. People at the time took this so seriously that clergymen would go out to the Pine Barrens and perform exorcism rites on the forest. Okay, so this is a big one. However, I'm going to keep it fairly concise. So, JFK assassination on November 22nd, 1963, while going on motorcade through Dallas, Texas. John F. Kennedy was shot, seemingly by a man named Lee Harvey Oswald. However, the conspiracy in this case comes about when people say that the bullets in the body after forensics do not appear to have came from that direction, including the theory of this magic bullet that would have had to change direction wildly. So the theory comes about where a lot of people believe that there had to be another shooter, and that the man himself, Lee Harvey Oswald, was a patsy who was then later killed shortly thereafter by a man named Jack Ruby, who had connections to a lot of nefarious organizations. So, again, I can't really go deep into this one, but JFK assassination. Jimmy Hoffa. So Jimmy Hoffa was an American labor union leader and the president of the Teamsters organization from 1957 until 1971. He became involved with organized crime early in his union career, and in 1967 he was sentenced to 13 years in prison for bribery, conspiracy, mail-in wire fraud, as well as jury tampering. He was released in 1971 by President Richard Nixon under the stipulation that he not be involved in any union activities until at least 1980. However, he is most famous for his disappearance in 1975. After more than likely meeting with mafia-connected people at this restaurant outside of Detroit, Jimmy Hoffa was never seen again. I don't really believe this one is too much of a mystery. The real mystery, I suppose, is that his body was never found. However, it is very obvious with this case that he was killed by the mob to keep his mouth shut about whatever kind of business he was into with them. So Johnny Gosch was a paperboy in Des Moines, Iowa, who disappeared on September 5th, 1982. This is a pretty run-of-the-mill disappearance, as bad as that is to say. However, the reason this one has so much notoriety is because his mother claimed in 1997 that Johnny, now grown up, came to visit her with an unidentified man. Johnny allegedly told her that he had been taken by a underage person trafficking organization and was cast aside when he became too old. However, he still believed his life was in danger and he could not return home. Even though I guess he could visit home with a stranger, but that's besides the point. Nobody really knows if this is true. However, she also claimed in 2006 that she found photographs on her doorstep that showed Johnny in captivity, as well as a few other children. However, those photos seem to be from a missing person's case in Florida, so they could be connected, they could not be. But this case also has a lot to do with the Franklin scandal, which I believe we'll be getting into later, as well as possibly MK Ultra in a weird way. So this one reaches deep. So maybe I'll make a video on that in the future, who knows. JonBenet Ramsey. So JonBenet Ramsey was an American child beauty pageant queen who was found dead in her house on Christmas Day, 1996. This case is most famous for all of these strange inconsistencies with the family story. For instance, when she was reported missing, the police came over to the house, and it wasn't until 7 hours after that that they found her body in the basement of the home, as well as finding a ransom note that was later found out to be written by the mother, Patsy Ramsey, which is a strange detail in and of itself. Nobody of the family was ever charged. However, I know recent documentaries have pointed to her brother as a suspect, but unfortunately, unless any new evidence comes about, this case will remain unsolved, but we have an idea of who probably did it. Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon. Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon were two Dutch students who went missing in Panama in April 2014. After an extensive search, Dutch and Panama authorities found some of their remains. It was then concluded that they most likely died after falling off of a cliff. However, foul play could not be entirely ruled out. Apparently, people believe that these investigators were too quick to jump to the conclusion of accidentally falling off a cliff, which would be strange for both of them to do at the same time, unless one of them fell and the other one was trying to help them, yada yada yada. However, there were a series of murders in the area, and a lot of people believe that this could be connected to those cases. LHOHQ. This one stands for Laughing Horse Orifice Headquarters. It's this website that posts these strange articles and images. I'm just going to show you the website and explain it from there. So now we're on the website. This is a homepage. Let's check out what this article is. Wall Street Journal, according to the president, is the Tribune Company's paper of rampant devil worship. And then we get Donald Trump, Pinochet option, CIA, neoliberal mind control, Bush, Clinton, Habsburg. Really, I don't know how to explain this one very well. A lot of people have theories about what this could be. More than likely, it's just some kind of ARG, somebody having fun with all these conspiracy-like topics. If you're interested in it, I would say go take a look at this website for yourself. Some of it is not safe for work, though, so be careful on that. However, I really don't have an answer to this one, and I think that is basically the point of this website, is to be unanswerable. Okay, now we're on to a more normal one. That is the Loch Ness Monster. So the Loch Ness Monster, also known as Nessie, is this creature from the Scottish Highlands who is said to inhabit Loch Ness. It's often described as a large, dinosaur-like creature with a long body, a long neck, and typically a hump on its back. Evidence of its existence is fairly anecdotal, with pictures like this and some sonar evidence. However, more than likely this is more of a fun fairy tale than a real cryptid case. So Majestic 12 is a supposed organization made up of scientists, military leaders, and government officials that was created in 1947 by Harry S. Truman to investigate the UFO phenomenon. Allegedly, they would investigate downed alien spacecrafts and were involved in investigations like the investigation of Roswell. The FBI has since come out and said that this is all a hoax, that these documents are all fake, which a lot of these documents more than likely are fake. However, of course the FBI is going to say it's fake. But this really came to light in 1984 by these UFO conspiracy theorists. Really, this organization might not exist, but we know things like Project Blue Book were created with just about the same agenda, so it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that this could have been a real organization. The Man from Torrid. So the Man from Torrid, as the story goes, was a man who arrived in the Tokyo airport in 1954. He claimed to be from a place called Torrid. He was said to speak French, among a litany of other languages, including Japanese. Japanese authorities, obviously not knowing what the hell Torrid is, asked him to point to it on a map, where he then pointed to the Principality of Andorra, which is between France and Spain. He claimed that his country had been there for 1,000 years and was incredibly confused. After being put under watch by security, he mysteriously vanished. It's clearly a strange story, however, it is more than likely taken from the story of a man named John Zegrus, who was a man who also showed up in the Tokyo airport, claiming to be from any number of places. He said he was born in the United States, lived in the UK, Germany, South Korea, a bunch of different places, Hong Kong, where he originally flew in from. He actually did not disappear, but instead was imprisoned for a year for identity theft, as nobody could make out who he was. He was then deported back to Hong Kong, where he was never seen again. It was later, when this story was reported, that a lot of the details from his case were mistranslated into the story of the Man from Torrid. So, if you want the real story, look up the story of John Zegrus. The Mandela Effect. So the Mandela Effect gets its name from the fact that some people seem to remember anti-apartheid South African leader Nelson Mandela dying in jail in the 1990s. However, Mandela got out of prison and became the president of South Africa afterwards. There are many, many famous examples of the Mandela Effect, including, like the image I have here, people remember this being called the Berenstain Bears, whereas instead the Berenstain Bears. The Fruit of the Loom logo having a cornucopia when in fact it does not, as well as the movie Shazam featuring Sinbad, where they were more than likely thinking of the movie Kazam with Shaq. The theory for why there are all of these discrepancies in the vast memory of different people is because we're constantly interacting with other parallel realities that are leaving residue in ours, hence why maybe it really was, the Berenstain Bears in our reality for some people, and then we clashed with another reality. However, it is more than likely that people just misremember the name. Although it's definitely the Berenstain Bears, in my opinion. The Mary Celeste. So the Mary Celeste is an American merchant ship that was found adrift, completely abandoned, off the Azores Island on December 4th, 1872. When the ship was found, it was fairly disheveled, under a partial sail, but still seaworthy. The last entry in the log had been entered 10 days prior. All of the provisions on the ship were still there, all of the cargo that they were transporting was, as well as the personal effects of the crew. The only thing really found missing was one of the lifeboats. A lot of theories have come about as to what could have happened here. Like all of these maritime disappearances, it's not quite certain why they would leave a perfectly good ship. If it was pirates or whatnot, they didn't ransom the crew because none of them were ever seen again. They didn't take any of the cargo. If it was a mutiny, again, they did not take their personal effects or provisions with them. As far as maritime mysteries, this one's up there as one of the most outright bizarre. So Maura Murray was an American college student who disappeared on February 9th, 2004 after being involved in a car accident. On that afternoon, she had emailed her professors as well as her work supervisor saying she needed a week off due to a death in the family. However, the family later stated there hadn't been no such death. At 7:30, a local woman reported seeing a car accident on a sharp turn on Route 112 in Woodsville, New Hampshire. According to the woman, she stopped and asked the person involved in the accident, which was Maura Murray, if she needed any medical attention. Murray apparently responded that she had called roadside assistance and would be fine. When this woman got home, she called emergency services. When they then arrived to the scene of the accident at around 7:45, they stated that there was nobody in the vehicle. And from that moment, nobody has ever seen her since. An investigation was done of the area surrounding the accident. No body was ever discovered. This is truly one of the strangest missing persons cases due to her obviously lying to leave the area she was in, getting in a car accident, and then just disappearing into thin air. The police believe that perhaps based on, like I said, these emails she sent to her professors and her work, stating that she needed to leave and the reason for leaving was completely made up, that perhaps she wanted to go missing voluntarily. However, the fact that she was in a car accident means that she would have had to hitchhike or something to get out of the situation, which, however unlikely, I believe is probably the most likely scenario. The Max Headroom incident. So this one refers to a signal hijacking that took place of local Chicago TV stations in November 1987. The first incident took place during the sports segment of WGN TV's 9 p.m. news broadcast and lasted for about 25 seconds. This one showed the figure, as you can see here, swaying and moving around with these strange buzzing noises playing. The second intrusion happened then about 2 hours later on a PBS affiliate's channel while they were broadcasting an episode of Doctor Who. This is probably the more famous incident in which the figure behind the mask makes allusions to the fact that the character Max Headroom endorsed Coca-Cola. He also made references to different TV shows as well as an anchor on the WGN, a local Chicago station's news channel. This interruption then ended with the Max Headroom character bending over and getting spanked by what appeared to be a female with a fly swatter. Despite years of speculation and an official FCC investigation, the perpetrators of this signal hijacking have never been identified. MKUltra. MKUltra was a CIA program from the 1950s to 70s in which the CIA attempted to create sleeper agents and, more broadly, find a way to brainwash unwilling participants. A lot of these experiments were done through different colleges and universities. Mainly, what they would do was fund research that they thought could be beneficial to MKUltra, and so a lot of the people administering these tests, as well as these subjects, were not aware that what they were participating in was MKUltra. The method for a lot of these tests were heavy doses of LSD, sensory deprivation, hypnosis. Famously, this program called psychic driving, in which you would just repeat the same sounds to a person over and over. A psychiatrist would ask you what your biggest trauma was. They would record your voice saying that out loud, lock you in a room, and play that for you over and over and over again to basically completely break you mentally, with the hopes that they could then build you back up into whatever they wanted. Oh boy, okay, this is one of my favorite ones, and that is Mothman. So Mothman was a alleged creature that showed up in the town of Point Pleasant starting in 1966, and sightings continued until the end of 1967. Along with all of these sightings of the Mothman, there was intense UFO phenomenon, appearances of the mysterious men in black who would visit journalists as well as just random people in their homes to talk about these events. All of this was covered in a book called The Mothman Prophecies by a man named John Keel, who was in Point Pleasant investigating all of this at the time. The initial sighting happened on November 15th, 1966, when a couple named Joe and Linda Scarberry, as well as friends of theirs, were driving in a car and noticed a creature with large red glowing eyes and what appeared to be a 10-foot wingspan following their car. They then accelerated to speeds reaching 100 miles per hour, while this creature continued to keep up with them. This was then picked up by the newspapers in the area, and it became national news. This all ended tragically, however, as on December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Ohio across the Ohio River, collapsed. This leads a lot of people to believe that the Mothman could, in fact, be a harbinger of bad things to come. A lot of people in the area before this disaster also had strange dreams. Famously, a woman who worked for the Athens newspaper in Ohio, who was in Point Pleasant investigating all of this, claimed to have nightmares nonstop of Christmas presents floating in the Ohio River, along with cars and shrapnel and debris, which then, of course, came to pass. The National Park Missing 411. So this one refers to books and documentaries by a man named David Pilatus, who, upon researching missing persons cases in national parks, found out that U.S. national parks do not keep records of people that go missing in their parks, nor do they share them around to other parks. He also noticed that a inordinate amount of people do go missing in national parks. However, he does not really have a theory as to why this could be. Perhaps these people just obviously go missing in these vast areas. However, a lot of these bodies are never found. A lot of these people are very accomplished or very knowledgeable hikers, explorers, yet just vanish without a trace. So this one's definitely strange. I don't know what it could be. I've watched one of his documentaries, and I believe at the end a woman stated that it could be invisible Bigfoots that are taking people. So I'm going to go with that one, invisible Bigfoots. Next we got Onion Town. So Onion Town is a little hamlet, I guess you could say, located an hour and a half outside of New York City. Why this one is famous is because many people have gone there and been treated very harshly by the local inhabitants. A lot of these people will just not even greet you with a hello, but instead throw rocks at you, brandish weapons and whatnot. I don't really believe this one should be on this iceberg, simply because I think that the reaction of the people that live here is pretty justified, considering the fact that their town is famous for being mean and weird to outsiders. So people from New York City still just go up there to check these people out. So of course they probably get tired of this and brandish weapons at people. I'm not saying it's okay, but I think this is more of a case of just picking on this trailer park, basically. So that's my take on it. I think it's just normal people that want to be left alone. Ouija boards, spirit boards, talking boards, whatever you want to call them, are said to be able to communicate with the dead, spirits, demons, what have you. They became popular with spiritualists in the United States in the late 1800s and were commonly used in seances. They, in my opinion, are still popular today because of the warnings given out about them by Christian denominations such as Catholicism that warn people not to use them because they could become demonically possessed, which, of course, because they are taboo, only made them more popular with people. However, in my opinion, I find it hard to believe that I can talk to the spirit world when my board is branded by Hasbro, the children's toy company. The Phoenix Lights. So the Phoenix Lights were a series of widely seen unidentified flying objects that were seen over the skies of Nevada, Arizona, as well as the Mexican state of Sonora on March 13th, 1997. Lights of varying descriptions were seen by thousands of people between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, in a space of about 300 miles from the Nevada line through Phoenix to the edge of Tucson. There were two distinct events involved in the incident: a triangular formation of lights seen to pass over the state, and a series of stationary lights seen in the Phoenix area. The U.S. Air Force identified the second group of lights as flares dropped by an A-10 Warthog aircraft that were on training exercises out of the Barry Goldwater Range in southwest Arizona. However, some witnesses claim to have seen a literal craft in these lights, meaning all of these lights were coming off of one giant craft. Also, the then governor of Arizona, a man named Fife Symington, staged this whole press conference where he brought an alien out and basically made an entire mockery of the situation. Then years later, he claimed that he also saw the lights and described the object that he saw in them as being otherworldly. So I said I wasn't going to talk about this one. I'm just going to be incredibly vague with it and just leave it at that. This is a conspiracy that this place called Comet Ping Pong in Washington, D.C. was involved in the trafficking of underage individuals. The theory also says that they did this with the help of or for these people involved in the campaign for Hillary Clinton named John Podesta and Tony Podesta. A lot of weird art came out that was owned by these two men, and a lot of weird posts on the Instagram account of the man who owned this place came out, which only fueled this conspiracy even more. However, I'm not going to show those images, and again, just so this video doesn't get taken down, we're just going to leave it at that. Do your own research if you'd like on this one, but let's keep this video maybe monetized. Psyops. Psyops, or psychological operations, are operations used to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and reasoning, so on and so forth. Basically, what a psyop is just psychological warfare. Propaganda is a psyop. Anything that is used to change somebody's opinion about something for the gain, usually of a government body, is a psyop. One example of a PSYOP would be Radio Free Europe or Radio Liberty, which is a United States government-funded program that would do broadcast and reports of news, information, and analysis to mainly communist countries around the world at the time of the Cold War in order to influence those local populations to change their way of thinking. And as you can see here, the United States even has an entire psychological operations division that is made to, impact the way people think. A lot of people talk about MKUltra, which we just talked about earlier, but if you're looking for the real brainwashing operations that the United States engages in, look no further than their PSYOP division. Randonautica. Randonautica was an app launched in February 2020 by a man named Joshua Langfelder. This app generates coordinates at random and is intended to have people go out and explore their local environments. This app has gained a lot of notoriety, however, as sometimes these coordinates lead people to very creepy or strange discoveries, the most famous of which was when people using the app followed these coordinates to a beach in West Seattle where they found the dead bodies of 2 people in bags on the beach. The creator of the app states that he sees these as just random coincidences. However, the amount of videos and evidence you can find on the internet shows that, it is strange that these supposedly random coordinates lead people to such creepy and strange places. The Roanoke Colony. So the Roanoke Colony was an attempt by a man named Sir Walter Raleigh to establish the first permanent English settlement in America. To do this, he sent a guy by the name of John White to America to set up this colony, which he did in 1587. Upon finding out that they needed more supplies to keep this thing running, he decided to go back to England in 1588 along with his flagship pilot, a man by the name of Simon Fernandez. Upon getting back to England, they were held up by the Anglo-Spanish War and were not able to return to the colony until 1590. Then upon their arrival back to the settlement, they found it completely abandoned, and the only trace of what had happened to the inhabitants was carved into a tree. They just wrote the word Croatoan. White took this to mean that the inhabitants had fled to Croatoan Island, or more likely joined up with the Native Americans and decided to live with them. However, this is fairly unlikely as nobody found any half Native American, half white Englishmen, Native Americans when people later colonized the United States, or I should say America. It's also unlikely that they were slaughtered by Indians, as, again, nobody was found in the area and no mass grave has ever been uncovered. So this one's still mysterious, but even though we didn't find any half English, half Native American people, I still think the most logical explanation is that they did escape to this island to live with Native Americans. Next up, we have the Roswell incident. So in 1947, a supposed flying saucer crashed on the ranch of a man named Max Brazel outside of Roswell, New Mexico. After the Roswell Army Airfield came out to investigate, they concluded that it was indeed a flying saucer. This was later amended to say that it was in fact a weather balloon, and then they had this whole press conference where a man came out and held up these remains stating that this is what was found on the land. However, a lot of conspiracy theorists, as well as myself to a certain extent, believe that this was all a quick cover-up to cover up what had obviously happened here. What people believe today is that this report in 1994 that the Air Force released, where they said that this was indeed part of Project Mogul, where they had these high-altitude weather balloons, and one of them crashed in this field, yada yada yada. People believed it was a flying saucer, and that's where this entire misunderstanding came from. However, I'm of the opinion that these people would not have misidentified a weather balloon, which they had seen weather balloons before, for a flying ship. So this is one we probably won't get a straight answer for ever, but a lot of the military intelligence at this time and the people that investigated this in the military later came out and stated that they believed that they found a downed alien spacecraft. Next up, we have Sasquatch or Bigfoot. This one is near and dear to me. I remember growing up in Ohio. I lived on a campground for a while, and these guys from the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, would come to the campground twice a year to do their investigations. They had all this high-tech equipment. I thought these guys were so cool when I was a kid. which is probably why I'm making these types of videos now. Weird how that happens, but if you don't know, the Sasquatch is said to inhabit mostly the northwestern part of the United States or Canada, but versions of it are seen all over the country. The most famous footage of this creature is the Patterson-Gimlin footage, which I will play here. So in this footage we see what appears to be a Bigfoot walking across an area of land. However, this is the only convincing footage we have of the Sasquatch, and a lot of people have pointed it out to be fake. In my opinion, believe whatever you want. I believe there very well could be a 7-foot tall monkey, giant bear person thing walking around in the woods that nobody can see, because again, according to the man that makes the Missing 411, Bigfoot could possibly become invisible and kidnap you, so look out for that. Next up we have Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch, or the Sherman Ranch, is a ranch southeast of Ballard, Utah, that is well known for having all manner of strange activity. Claims of the ranch first appeared in 1996 in the Salt Lake City, Utah paper, The Desert News, and then as well in the Las Vegas Mercury in a series of articles written by a man named George Knapp. These stories detailed the claims of a family that lived there and experienced inexplicable and frightening events after they purchased and lived on the property. Some of these events are, but are not limited to, multiple UFOs and glowing orbs appearing to the father of the family, a poltergeist that would move things around in the house and all over the property, as well as a giant wolf-like beast that was witnessed by many people, not just the family. In 1996, the family that occupied the house sold it to millionaire Robert Bigelow, the founder of NIDS, or the National Institute for Discovery Science. Bigelow and his team conducted a lot of paranormal research and encountered many a strange event on the ranch. However, they were never able to record anything successfully. In 2016, Bigelow sold Skinwalker Ranch for $4.5 million to a shell corporation called Adamantium Holding. After the purchase, all roads leading to the ranch were blocked off, and barbed wire and guards were placed around the area. A lot of people have speculated why this company would have bought this ranch. In my opinion, I think they bought it to, in the future, make it a tourist attraction, because that's who would spend $5 million on a ranch that has no confirmed paranormal activity, unless you just wanted to make money off the name. But if you want to know more about this, read the book Hunt for the Skinwalker by a guy named Colm Kelleher with the help of George Knapp. It's a very interesting read and will tell you a lot more than I can tell you in a minute. The Stanley Hotel. The Stanley Hotel is a 140-room colonial revival hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, which is about 5 miles away from the Rocky Mountain National Park. It was built in 1909 and was originally opened for upper-class Eastern visitors to the Rocky Mountains, as well as a health retreat for people suffering from pulmonary tuberculosis. However, this hotel is most famous for being the inspiration for Stephen King's book The Shining, after him and his wife stayed at the hotel in 1977. Since the publishing of the novel and the subsequent famous movie by Stanley Kubrick, a lot of people have stated that they've stayed in the hotel and experienced paranormal activity. However, I don't want to discount these people's stories, but it seems convenient that the paranormal activity was only stated to exist at this hotel after the publishing of this book and the famous movie. Stonehenge. So Stonehenge is a prehistoric monument that is located on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England. It consists of an outer ring of stones that are each around 13 feet high, 7 feet wide, and weighing around 25 tons, and then they are topped by connecting horizontal stones, as you can see in this picture here. The monument's mysterious past has led to a lot of tales and folklore about it. According to some people, the wizard Merlin from Arthurian legend created Stonehenge by teleporting the rocks from Ireland to their present location and having giants assemble them. Then another legend says that the Danes put these stones up, and another theory say that they're ruins of an ancient Roman temple. Some modern day interpretations are even stranger than this, with people believing that it could be a landing area for aliens, which, if I'll refer you back to part 1 of this series where we talked about crop circles, one of which popped up near Stonehenge, as well as other people believing it could be a giant fertility symbol, with the structure itself above appearing to look like a woman, which I don't think that one's true. But next up we have vampires. So vampires are, as we all know, creatures in folklore said to prey on humans and feast on their blood. Vampires have been featured in folklore for hundreds of years, most predominantly in Europe. Although nowadays a lot of people see vampires as, the creatures we see in Twilight and all these other movies. There's still a lot of places around the world where they still believe in vampires very fervently. As late as the early 20th century, villages in Bulgaria continued to practice corpse impaling, which was basically sticking a stake through the corpse to make sure it would not return as a vampire, or to make sure it was dead. In the 1960s and 70s, a vampire was believed to haunt the Highgate Cemetery in London. And in the early 21st century, vampires caused an uproar in Malawi, with people in that area believing that a vampire was feeding on local inhabitants. So there are still a lot of places around the world where they believe that vampires still prey upon human, and they could be right. WebDriver Torso. So WebDriver Torso is a YouTube automated performance testing account that became famous in 2014 for speculation about what this YouTube channel could even be, as well as some of the jokes in these videos. Like the one you see here is from a video making fun of the Rickrolling phenomenon. This channel was allegedly created by Google in March 2013, and then subsequently uploaded 624,774 videos up until March 4th, 2017, where it then stopped. A lot of people speculated on what these could be, if it was some kind of brainwashing pattern or whatnot. However, in my opinion, this one was very clearly just a way for Google to test out their algorithm and different performance-based metrics on their website. So the Winchester Mystery House is a mansion in San Jose, California, that was once the personal residence of Sarah Winchester, who was the widow of William Winchester, the designer of the Winchester rifle. This mansion is obviously famous for the lack of any real building plan and all the architectural curiosities in the house, including doors that lead to nowhere, rooms with nothing in them, just all these weird little inconsistencies in the house. The house itself has 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors for 160 rooms, 52 skylights, 47 stairways and fireplaces, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens. Many theories exist to explain why she never stopped adding on to the house, including the fact that she was trying to escape angry spirits that had been killed by the rifles that her late husband had made. But more than likely, she was just an eccentric woman who wanted to create a house that in and of itself is a work of art. Next up we have Worldcorp. So Worldcorp was a YouTube channel that was started in 2015 that started uploading these weird 90s vaporwave type music videos that showed strange image and text. A couple of videos that stood out in particular were videos, one called Fatherhood and one called Each Day I Grow Some More, which appeared to show a man yelling at a child. It was later found out that a video on the Worldcorp website showed actual child abuse, so we can infer that these two videos that were on the YouTube channel did as well. However, all of this has now been deleted. Their YouTube channel is now gone, as well as the website. However, if you search, you can still find these videos. However, these specific videos in question, I probably would not look for them based on the contents of the video. Nobody still knows to this day what the point of Worldcorp was. It appeared to be an ARG. However, these videos in particular appear to paint it as something far more sinister. Okay, now we're on to YouTube monkey torture. So this refers to exactly what the name suggests, YouTube channels and various videos hosted on YouTube that show people torturing monkeys, right? Specifically, there was a channel called Kill Baby Monkeys that would, again, show dying monkeys, abused monkeys, so on and so forth. That channel has now been taken down, and looking at YouTube, I couldn't find any of these types of videos anymore, so I believe YouTube cracked down on that. I'm not sure why somebody would upload these to YouTube, but I'm obviously not going to show you any evidence of it on here. But yeah, definitely a weird entry, YouTube monkey torture. Okay, finally, for Tier 1, we have the Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer is a pseudonym for an unidentified serial killer who operated in Northern California in the late 1960s. The Zodiac murdered 5 known victims in the San Francisco Bay Area between December 1968 and October 1969. He was known to target young couples as well as a lone male cab driver, and only 2 of his victims were known to, survive the attempted killing. The Zodiac originated the name for himself in a series of taunting letters and cards that he mailed to regional newspapers, threatening killing sprees and bombings if they were not printed. Some of the letters included ciphers in which the Zodiac claimed that he was collecting victims in order to have them as slaves in the afterlife. Of the 4 ciphers he delivered, 2 still remain unsolved, and one of which took 51 years to solve. While many people have theories about who the Zodiac could have been, the only suspect that was ever named publicly was a man named Arthur Lee Allen, a former elementary school teacher and convicted sex offender who died in 1992. Recently, a group called the Crime Busters claimed that they had solved the case, and they implicated a man named Gary Francis Post, who died in 2018. However, that has obviously not been corroborated by any actual law enforcement agency, but that is the latest news. It actually happened not too long ago, a few months ago, so maybe we found him. I know when I was looking into that Gary Francis Post guy, a lot of people on his Facebook page, a lot of close friends of him, referred to him as the Zodiac, which is kind of weird, but then again, that could be the only evidence they have that he was a Zodiac. I don't know, but either way, one of the most enigmatic serial killers in US history. And that would do it for Tier 1 of the Complete Unsolved Iceberg. Thank you everybody for watching. It only gets weirder from here and only requires so much more research to get all this stuff, but all this work is worth it if you guys are enjoying it. If you're here on a Wednesday, I'm live. Don't miss all the great content you could be missing out on, like this.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into did you see any beings, just because I'm just in a vulnerable state. I'm not trying to get in a deep conversation like that.
What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know, when you get a massage, it's not like you're fully clothed.
I believe when this video is posted, we're going to be in the midst of our Me Lie series. I do it with my friend Jeff. So stop on by, talk about whatever you want to talk about, and maybe learn something along the way. But as for me, I'll see you guys next week, where we delve into Tier 2 of the Complete Unsolved Iceberg. Thanks for watching.